Pause if necessary, but please take a moment to read the following. Hello and welcome to the 6th video from the Kawasaki channel. This video is the second in the series relating to the Commodore CBM4032, which you can see in front of you at the moment. If you haven't seen the first video, I suggest you watch that first, where we safely power it up for the first time in a long time and sort out a very minor problem with the space bar. So other than that, we have a working machine. Now I did put a couple of the screws, well, 3 of the screws back into the keyboard when I was testing it. So I'll be taking those out as part of it. But basically I'm going to be following the same procedure that I explained in my video, how to disassemble anything. And I'll be creating a map of how to do that. And I'll show you how I lay out cables to make sure that they are also correct. So to start off, I'm going to open it back up and I'm going to remove the screws that I put back in to hold the keyboard in place. I'm just going to disconnect the keyboard cable. Now these screws are all the same and I've already marked them as pot 41. And that's the keyboard removed, and I'll place that with the other items on the bench. Okay, so what I've now done is I've actually drawn, and I'll show this on the screen. I've drawn out the inside of the computer and I've labelled where there are screws holding the motherboard to the computer. And I've also laid out the 3 cables that are attached. Obviously, a lot of these cables could be put either way round. So what I've done, for instance, where this cable is blue at the top and brown at the bottom, I've marked that on the diagram as well, as you can see. That allows me to remove the cables without any further issues. So I'm going to pop those cables off now. At this point, the keyboard cable is fully detached, so I can place that with the other components over there and remove the CRT cable. I'm not sure how static sensitive these motherboards are, but I'm going to use a static wrist strap just to be on the safe side. So I'll just put that on now, and there's a grounding point here where the paint has come off on the case. So I'm now going to detach the first screw, and then looking at this screw is different from any others, so I'm going to put that in pot number 40. And I'm going to mark it on my diagram as 40. And the next screw, this is the same, so that could be a 40. And there's one at the back. And that's a 40. Now, this particular motherboard is held in by those 3 screws plus 2 plastic clips, and I'm just going to use a pair of pliers to squeeze the plastic clip so that the catch goes in and it can fit back through the hole. So that's that one I've done on that side. This one's a bit easier. Okay, so the board is now detached from those locations, and there's an extra clip here which I hadn't noticed when I did it earlier. So I'll just pop that off as well. So the motherboard's now released, and I'm just going to mark a note on these that there's a clip at these locations, and the motherboard can come out. And I'm going to place that on the bench. The bench is wooden and it's a stone floor, so there's no issues in relation to static now. Now, if we look at the power supply, this gigantic transformer here is powering the motherboard, but it also powers the CRT. Now, there are two brown wires going here, and obviously I don't know from having never taken a PET apart before if these wires have to be in phase or whether or not. Well, looking at the transformer, it looks like it's a center tap with two taps either side, so these are likely either side of 0. But it may well be that they have to be in a particular phase, which at factory could be swapped around at the other end, but I haven't seen that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark off one of these, what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip off the wire at the transformer end, very close, and I'm going to just put a small knot into one. You can use a tie wrap, sometimes they come off, but I put a small knot in one and I disconnected the other. So the knot was the middle one, and just make sure the diagram's correct. I just noticed it wasn't. Okay, so carrying on from there, there are two tie wraps holding the capacitor in place. So I'm going to remove them, and I'll have to replace them with new ones later on. And I can remove this now. So looking at this, I'm going to draw the capacitor now with the label on the front, and saying which side is which. The markings on it to show which is negative and which is positive are not clear at all, so I've just marked that on. So I'm now going to undo first one screw, I'll leave that for a moment while I mark on the screw details. So we've got a washer and a screw, and I'm just going to mark on here now, screw plus washer, and this screw is similar to the case one, but it's not, it's a little bit longer, so that's going to get its own place of 39. And the washer can go in the same pot. And now I'm going to disconnect the other one, and the capacitor can go over with the rest of the equipment, and we can move on from there. Okay, so the power supply is now detached, and I need to release the earth cable. So that goes into 38, and there's a washer. So that will go into number 38. And the black wire from the power cable goes to the earth point as well. And that goes to the capacitor. And there's another earth wire which goes onto there as well. So we've got most of this removed now, and I'm actually going to remove the monitor now. Now I'm going to move it forwards and make sure that the monitor is resting on the table, and it now appears that the monitor is only attached to the computer now by 4 bolts. So I'm going to undo these 4 bolts. The nuts off the ends of these bolts. These are going to go into number 37. So just make a note of that. And as I take the last bolt out, I'm going to make sure that I'm holding the monitor, as I don't want it to fall the few centimetres to the desk and possibly damage itself. Okay, so the monitor is now detached, and I just have the base of the computer. So I'm going to turn that round and remove the remaining screws for the lid. These are all the same, so again these can all go into the same location. So they're all going to go into number 34. So again, make a note of that. 33. And now the lid comes away. I'm not sure what this lid's made out of. I thought they were I thought they were metal, but I think this is actually quite a heavy plastic. So that can go into the box. Now, I'm not actually going to be respraying the base of my machine. So I don't actually have to disassemble it any further. But the power supply is here, and obviously there are 2 screws which hold it to the bottom. The plate that the transformer is on also attaches to the back with another couple of screws, and there are 4 bolts holding it down. But as I'm not going to be doing anything with that now, I'm not going to disassemble it any further, and I'm going to leave this as one part. And we have the monitor. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start a new sheet, and we now have the monitor. So looking from the bottom, this metal plate is held on by a couple of screws at this side. I'm just looking around it for anything else. Okay, so looking at it, so I've got the opening at the bottom, the hole, and then the lid bolts, so I don't mix them up. And then there is a screw there, and a screw there, screw there, screw there, and 2 more screws underneath. So I can now remove these. I'm going to take off these two first. And looking in the box, again, these aren't the same as any others, so these will go into pot number 34. No washers, so 34, 34. Aha. Okay, so we've then removed the CRT pot comes away, so I'm lowering that down, and we have the outer casing. And we just have the front now. So the point of what I'm doing is to respray the casing. So I'm not going to disassemble anything that I don't need to disassemble. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take these off and see if that sorts everything out. Okay, so this screw is different from any others, so that can go into another hole, 32. Same with that one, and that one, and that one. Okay, so now safely lift up the CRT, and we have the surround. I'm now going to, the surround is just clipped in place by the look of it, but I want to be really careful because this is very old plastic and I don't want to break it. So I'm just levering it just enough to come away and no further. It's actually catching on part of the moulding. There's a very slight ridge right in the middle of the moulding. I'm not too sure on what the flexibility of this plastic's going to be like, so I'm being really careful. So the surround has now come away. This surround will only need washing. It should be fine, and it's plastic as well. So that's the surround, and we just have the final piece of plastic. Just one final thing that needs to happen before I get on with the preparation work is to remove the sticker. Now what I'm using here is a snap-off blade, and I'm going to be careful. If I feel at any point that this isn't going to come off properly, then it'll be masked. But the problem with masking things is it's never 100%. So what I'm doing is I'm sliding the blade up and down, making sure that it's as close to the metal part as possible, and trying not to deform the sticker in any way. You can buy replacement stickers, but they're not the originals, and they're not very cheap. So I would like to keep the original sticker as it's in good condition. And there it is, removed all in one piece with no further damage to it. The only slight marks are a scratch which is on the front underneath Commodore, and a scratch here, but they were there when I got it. So yeah, I'll use some very thin double-sided adhesive tape to re-stick that in place. So I'll make sure that that stays the right way up, and then I'll just take off this badge I put on temporarily, and I can then prepare it for painting. Please click and subscribe. There will be at least 2 more videos in the series in relation to the PET. I hope this is useful, even if it just shows another example of how to disassemble things and make sure that they go back together again correctly. This is a lot more complicated than the first example, but by following these simple rules, you'll always end up with something that can go back together with all the screws in the right place. And if you can undo a screw and tighten a screw back up, you can take most things apart if you do it in a logical step-by-step way.